Okay, we're going to be looking at factor by grouping, which is one of these special cases for factoring. So when you use factor by grouping, it's because you're going to have more than 3 terms typically. You've probably spent time learning about how to factor trinomials. So factor by grouping allows us to chunk the 4 terms into smaller groups of 2. So what I mean by that is the way that my terms are listed, I'm only going to focus on the first 2 terms. So I'm going to draw a little division symbol here to split this up, and I'm only going to focus on those first 2 terms, 8f to the third minus 8f squared. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use GCF, but only on the first 2 terms. So we're going to look for the greatest common factor of the 2 terms. So if I look carefully, they both can be divisible by, they can both be divided by 8, and they can both be divided by f to the power of 2. So that tells me that I can have 8f squared as the greatest common factor between the 2 terms. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this term by 8f squared and this term by 8f squared. As a result, what I'll have inside of my parentheses is f, because 8 divided by 8 is 1, and f to the third over f squared will just give us f, minus 8 divided by 8 is 1, f squared over f squared is also 1. So we end up with f minus 1 as the term inside the parentheses. Okay, so I've taken care of the first 2 terms. Now I'm going to look at the last 2 terms. The last 2 terms, plus 5f minus 5, I'm also going to look to factor out the greatest common factor between these 2 terms. So I notice that both of these terms can be divided by 5. So we're going to factor out a 5, or a positive 5. And then that leaves us with 5 divided by 5 is just f. And negative 5 divided by 5 is minus 1, or negative 1. Okay, so that's the first part of the process. It's to split up the 4 terms into 2 groups of 2 and find the GCF of both of those groups. Then you're going to do the GCF one more time. Okay, so now notice what you have in common between the expression down here. Okay, I'm going to erase this. I have a new expression, right? 8f squared times f minus 1 plus 5 times f minus 1. What do you notice out of these 2 terms, right? This is my first term, and then this is my second term. What do you notice that they both have? Well, they both have the term f minus 1, right? They both have this term right here. So I'm going to factor out a new GCF, which is f minus 1. So when I factor out f minus 1 from both of those terms, what's left over? Well, I end up with 8f squared left over and plus 5. So then those 2 terms are going to go inside of a new parentheses. So now what I have is a finalized factored expression with f minus 1 times 8f squared plus 5. And we're done.